My parents buried their grief by turning me into the son they lost. For years I lived as Ryan, even though I was born Elena. But when I found out the truth, that I was never meant to exist, I stopped playing their game. That's when they tried to break me for good. Frankie, I don't even know how to start this without sounding like I'm making it up. Because who does this to their kid, right? Who looks at their 5-year-old daughter and says, "You're not Elena anymore, you're Ryan." And the worst part? I didn't even question it. I was 5. I just obeyed. I remember the day it happened like a blurry dream I've tried too many times to forget. My mom was sitting on the edge of my bed, holding a pair of navy blue shorts and a striped polo shirt. I had been playing with my dolls. I loved brushing their hair, pretending they were princesses with secret gardens. But when she walked in, her eyes went somewhere far away. I don't think she saw me. I think she saw him. "Elena," she said. Her voice cracked like she wasn't sure what she was saying next. "From now on, you're going to be our Ryan." I looked at her like she just called me the wrong name by mistake. "Ryan?" I repeated, confused. She nodded quickly like she was afraid she'd lose her nerve. "Your father and I talked about it. Ryan is special to us. We think that name suits you better." I didn't understand. I was Elena. I'd just learned how to write the E right, but something in her face made me quiet. Something in how tightly she held that shirt. And when Dad came home that night and said, "There's my boy," for the first time, I understood. Or at least I thought I did. And if wearing that shirt meant my mom would stop crying in the laundry room and my dad would ruffle my hair like he used to, then fine, I'd be Ryan. So I changed. Out went the sparkly dresses, the rainbow barrettes, the pink ballet slippers. In came cargo shorts, basketball posters, superhero lunchboxes. I memorized every rule to football. I learned to spit like the boys did at recess. I stopped crossing my legs when I sat, and I was good at it. God, Frankie, I got so good at being Ryan, because being Ryan meant hugs at bedtime. It meant my mom packing extra Oreos in my lunchbox again. It meant my dad coming to my school games and shouting, "That's my son." So I buried Elena. I buried her deep like a dead thing I wasn't allowed to grieve, but she was always there. In the way I envied the girls in the sparkly tights during PE, and how I lingered at the lip gloss aisle at CVS longer than I should. And how sometimes, when no one was home, I'd sneak into the bathroom and try to twist my hair into the messy bun I still remembered from back then. By the time I was 9, Ryan was on every school form, every trophy, every birthday cake. I'd stopped correcting people when they called me he. Hell, I said it myself. No one talked about Elena, not once, like she never existed. And I guess, in their minds, she didn't. But Frankie, here's the part that'll mess you up. I didn't know why. I didn't know about him, not until years later. I didn't know they'd had a son, a real one, a baby boy named Ryan, stillborn, born a year before me. I was their second chance, their do-over. I didn't find that out until I was 13. I was looking for a flash drive in my dad's desk because I needed it for a school project. That's when I found the box. One of those cardboard keepsake boxes with fading Sharpie writing on top. I almost didn't open it. But the lid was half off and curiosity got the better of me. Inside, a birth certificate. Ryan Caleb Martin. Died the same day he was born. Photos, an ultrasound, a baby blanket with his name embroidered in the corner, and a sympathy card, addressed to my parents. "We're so sorry about Ryan's passing." Frankie, my knees buckled, because it all made sense. The birthday parties where I never picked the theme, the way my mom insisted I wear blue because it suits you better, the framed ultrasound in their bedroom I never asked about, the way they flinched when I cried, how they froze when I said I felt like I didn't belong in my body. I wasn't grieving a lost childhood, I was grieving myself. They didn't raise a daughter, they raised a ghost, their ghost. And suddenly I wasn't confused. I was furious. I was grieving, and I was terrified. Because if I wasn't Ryan, if I never wanted to be Ryan, then who the hell was I? That question started eating me alive. Puberty hit like a wrecking ball. My chest started to change. My hips widened. My voice never dropped like the other boys. I couldn't hide behind baggy hoodies and a backwards cap anymore. Biology outed me, and my parents doubled down. They bought me binders, unprompted, told me I'd grow into myself. My mom took me to a doctor and told him I had body dysmorphia, like it was a condition she could treat in silence. But I wasn't dysphoric because I was trans. I was dysphoric because I wasn't allowed to be me. I was 13, Frankie. I didn't know the language for any of this. I just knew I felt like a stranger in my own life. And the worst part? I blamed myself. I thought I was broken. There were nights I'd sit in the shower with the water as hot as I could stand it, just staring at my arms, wishing I could unzip the skin and step out of it like a costume. I started writing letters to myself, little notes I'd hide under my mattress. "Dear Elena," they'd start. I needed to remember she was real, that I wasn't crazy, that once I had been whole. I never planned on anyone reading those letters, but one day my mom found one. I'd left it under my pillow, half asleep. That night, she didn't speak to me. The next morning, she tore the note in half and left it on the kitchen counter like a warning. Not a word was said. But the message was loud. Don't. So I got better at hiding. I smiled when she asked if I was excited for basketball tryouts. I lied when Dad said, "No girl's ever gonna be as tough as my boy." I kept my head down and tried not to cry when I got my first period and had to pretend I didn't know what it was. I stopped being a kid, started being a mask. But Frankie, masks crack. Mine did, one day in gym class. We were doing swim unit. They'd always let me use the boys' locker room, even though I kept to myself in a stall. But this time, I couldn't fake it. The moment I stepped out in my swim trunks, chest bound tight, I could feel the eyes. Not just from the guys, from the coach. From the assistant principal who was observing that day. Whispers started. I felt it like needles all over my skin. One kid, I still remember his name, Jake, laughed and said, "Dude, why do you have boobs?" The room exploded. Coach blew the whistle. The boys roared with laughter. I ran straight into the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and sobbed until my binder soaked through. I couldn't do it anymore, Frankie. I couldn't pretend. That night, I stood in front of the mirror with scissors in one hand and a sports bra in the other. I was going to cut my hair off. I was going to do something drastic, anything to feel something real again. Instead, I called 911. I told the operator I didn't feel safe in my house, that I needed someone to come, that I couldn't be Ryan anymore. It was the first time I said it out loud. I'm not him. I never was. They transferred me to a crisis team. A social worker came to school the next day. My mom showed up, wild-eyed and furious. My dad stood with his arms crossed, silent as a tombstone. They said I was confused, hormonal. But I wasn't the one who couldn't say their dead son's name without blinking. That was the day everything changed. Frankie, when I found out who Ryan really was, when I realized I was just the replacement, the ghost of a boy who never got to breathe, I thought the truth would set me free. But truth doesn't always do that. Sometimes it just traps you in a deeper, darker cage. My mom's face when I confronted her. I'll never forget it. I was standing in the kitchen, that birth certificate still in my hand, the baby blanket clutched to my chest. I asked, "Who was he?" She froze mid-step, like a robot that had been unplugged. Then she dropped the bowl she was holding. Shards of ceramic clattered to the floor, and for a second, I thought she might faint. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, even though she did. I pushed the certificate toward her. "You named me after a dead baby. Ryan was your firstborn. I found the box. Why didn't you ever tell me?" She looked up at me like I was the cruel one, like I had hurt her. "You were too young to understand," she said quickly. "It was a loss, that's all. It doesn't matter anymore." But it did matter. It mattered every time she praised me for being strong like Ryan, every time she told me to be a good boy for Ryan. It mattered because I wasn't her child. I was a patch over her grief. "I'm not him," I said, my voice shaking. "I never was." She just shook her head. "Don't do this. Please don't do this." When my dad got home, she told him before I could. I sat on the couch like a statue while they argued in the kitchen. I heard his voice rise. It was bound to happen. We can't pretend forever. Then hers. "She doesn't know who she is. This is a phase. We just need to fix it." She didn't say he, she said she, like a curse word. When they came out, she held a cup of tea like it was armor. My dad knelt in front of me like I was a toddler who'd scraped her knee. "Elena," he said, trying to sound tender. "I know this is confusing. Can we just slow down? Take a breath? Your mother and I need time." "I've given you 13 years, I snapped. His face crumpled. I ran upstairs and slammed the door. Then I grabbed the scissors. Not for myself, Frankie, though I won't lie, I thought about it. I cut my hair. Not just trimmed, hacked it. Chunky, uneven pieces falling to the floor like shed skin. I cut up the sports bras they bought me, the boys' clothes, every t-shirt that said "Tough like Dad." I shredded them into confetti and flushed half of it down the toilet. I looked in the mirror afterward. My chest was still bound, my hair butchered, my face blotchy from crying, but for the first time, I didn't see Ryan. I saw a girl trying to claw her way back to herself. I couldn't stay in that house. I knew it. But I also knew I had nowhere else to go, so I got smart. I started documenting everything, every conversation where they denied me, every therapy appointment where the counselor repeated my mom's words instead of mine, every time they switched pronouns back and forth like I was some broken appliance they couldn't fix. I used my old phone, the one they thought I'd lost. I hid it in a shoebox under my bed, recorded voice memos, took photos of bruises, not from beatings, but from being grabbed too hard, dragged to the car when I refused to go to conversion therapy. I filmed myself crying, talking, telling the truth. That box under the bed became my lifeline, and still it got worse. At school, I asked to be called Elena. The counselor said she'd circle back. My teachers kept calling me Ryan. Kids started whispering. Rumors spread. Is Ryan a girl? Did you see what she was wearing? I lost my seat at the lunch table, got pushed in the hallway. A note showed up in my locker one day that said, "Pick a side, freak." The worst part? My parents used the school's reaction as proof that I was the problem. "If you had just kept your head down, none of this would have happened," my mom said over dinner, slicing her chicken like she wanted to cut me instead. I stopped talking. Until Maya. She sat behind me in English. Quiet girl, big headphones, wore skirts over ripped jeans and always had ink on her fingers from doodling on her arms. One day after class, she slipped me a sticky note. It just said, "I see you. I believe you." I almost cried right there. I didn't respond at first. Didn't know how. But the next week, I sat next to her at lunch. We didn't say much, just picked at our food in silence. But it was the first time in months I didn't feel like a ghost. Eventually, I told her, all of it. She didn't say wow or oh my God. She just said, "You deserve to be Elena, not their Ryan." That's when we started planning. She knew someone. A youth advocate at Rainbow Bridge, the local LGBTQ+ center, said she could help. But I had to be ready, so I got ready. I compiled everything on a flash drive. I wrote a letter to myself just in case I didn't make it, just in case I had to go back. And one Friday afternoon, while my parents were at a grief support group, yes, still, I packed a bag. Maya met me at the corner near the post office. We walked to the bus station like we were just two friends hanging out, and that's when I ran. I left a voicemail on the house line, just 4 words. "I'm not coming back." Then I turned off my phone. The shelter took me in that night. I slept in a twin bed under a blanket that smelled like lavender soap, next to another girl who didn't ask questions. I cried so hard I nearly threw up. Maya's friend connected me with a legal team. I started the paperwork for partial emancipation. The state opened an investigation into my parents. When my mom found out, she showed up at the shelter. Security had to escort her out. She screamed, "That's my son! He's confused! You're all feeding his delusions!" I watched from the second-floor window, holding the teddy bear someone had left on my bed. That was the last time I saw her face to face. My dad sent a letter 2 weeks later. It was shaky and sad. He said he missed me, whatever version that meant. Said he was trying to understand. That he was in therapy now. That he read my journal, the one I'd hidden in the vent, and that it broke something open. He signed the letter Dad. But the envelope said to Elena. I kept that letter under my pillow for weeks. The road wasn't easy after that, Frankie. People think escape is the hard part, but surviving it, living in your truth when the world keeps trying to shove you back into the old shape, that's harder. I had bad nights, panic attacks. Nightmares where my mom held me down and made me cut my hair again. Days I wanted to go back, just for the comfort of a routine, even if that routine hurt. But every time I wanted to give up, Maya would say something like, "You've already done the impossible. Don't you dare stop now." And I didn't. Not when they tried to get custody back, not when my school refused to change my records, not when I had to testify in a hearing, shaking in a too big blazer and telling a judge that I was me and not their dead son. When that judge granted me partial emancipation, I felt like I could finally breathe again. Frankie, I used to think surviving was enough, that if I could just breathe without someone else's hands around my throat, metaphorically, sometimes literally, then that would be enough. But it wasn't. Because surviving meant I still carried Ryan on my back like a ghost I never asked for, and I didn't want to just exist in the cracks of someone else's story anymore. I wanted to be Elena, not a secret, not a mistake, not a wound my parents dressed up in a boy's polo shirt. After I escaped, I spent 3 weeks at the Rainbow Bridge Youth Shelter. Maya stayed with me almost every day, sometimes sneaking in hot cocoa or nail polish just to make me smile. Her mom, Talia, visited too, and after my court date for partial emancipation, she asked if I wanted to move in. Frankie, I cried when she said that. Like full body, can't breathe, shoulder shaking sobs, because I'd never had someone say, "You can stay," without attaching a condition to it. Their house was nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom rental with a cracked porch step and a fridge covered in cat magnets. But it was the first place I ever felt safe enough to hang up my own name on the door. Elena's room. Maya wrote it in purple Sharpie on an index card and taped it there before I even unpacked. I started sleeping through the night. I started eating 3 meals a day. I started writing poems again, about thunder and breath and the parts of me my parents pretended didn't exist. And then I started fighting. The legal team at Rainbow Bridge helped me petition for a full name change. We filed everything: declarations, school records, even my journals. I stood in front of a judge in an itchy dress Maya loaned me and said my truth out loud. My name is Elena Grace Martin. I was assigned male because my parents couldn't let go of a loss they never healed. I am not their son. I never was. I'm just me. And I deserve to be seen. It took 7 weeks to get the letter in the mail. I opened it alone in the bathroom, staring at the envelope like it might vanish. The court had granted my petition. It was real. I wasn't Ryan on paper anymore. I wasn't a placeholder for their grief. I was Elena, legally, permanently, finally. My dad wrote again, not long after that. Another letter. This one shakier, more honest. He said therapy was forcing him to look at parts of himself he didn't want to see. Said he couldn't sleep the night I left. That the silence in the house was unbearable, not because I was gone, but because he couldn't lie to himself anymore about who was living there in the first place. He asked if he could see me. I waited 3 weeks before I answered. Then I agreed. We met at a diner halfway between his house and Talia's. He brought me sunflowers, my favorite, though I never told him that. I don't know if it was a coincidence or something he remembered from a long, long time ago. "Elena," he said when I walked in. Not Ryan. He didn't cry. Neither did I. We just sat there, 2 people trying to meet again in the middle. He told me he wished he'd asked more questions, that he knew now what they did was wrong, that no child should ever have to play a role just to be loved. He didn't ask me to come home, and for that, I was grateful, because I wouldn't have said yes. My mom never wrote, never called. She became a shadow, a voicemail I never listened to, a picture I stopped carrying in my wallet. But one time, around Thanksgiving, I checked my old email out of habit. There was one message from her. No greeting, no sign-off, just one line. "You were never supposed to leave." I closed the tab and didn't reply, because that sentence told me everything I needed to know. She didn't miss me. She missed her illusion. But Frankie? The rest of the world? The world outside my old house? It started to open up. Rainbow Bridge connected me to a weekend arts program for queer youth. They handed me a sketch pad, and I filled it with every version of Elena I could imagine. Elena underwater, Elena on fire, Elena with wings too big to fit through the door. I showed one to Maya once. "You look like a goddess," she said. And Frankie. I felt like one. Because the more I drew, the more I existed. I met other teens like me, some who'd run from worse, some who were still halfway in the dark. We sat in circles on beanbags and shared stories like matches in a storm. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel broken. Of course, there were hard days. There were teachers who refused to update their records, students who snickered when I changed in the gender-neutral locker room. There was a neighbor who called me a bad influence when Maya and I held hands on our porch, but those things didn't undo me the way they used to, because I wasn't standing alone anymore. When I turned 16, we held a small celebration, just pizza, music, and a paper crown Maya made out of glitter cardstock. I wore a secondhand dress I found at a thrift store, the first one I ever chose for myself. My dad came. He brought a photo of me as a baby, before any of the Ryan stuff, just me, swaddled in a yellow blanket, yawning at the camera. He framed it and wrote Elena Day 1 on the back in pen. That night, I sat on Talia's porch after everyone went to sleep, the photo in my lap. I was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like peace, not like hiding. And I remember thinking, I made it. I made it back to myself. Frankie, I know a lot of people spend their whole lives trying to figure out who they are, but me, I always knew. I was Elena the day I was born. They just couldn't see it. And yeah, it took blood, heartbreak, and legal petitions just to get the world to acknowledge it, but it was worth it. Because now when I look in the mirror, I don't see a ghost. I see a girl who fought her way through hell and came out whole. Frankie, I used to believe healing would feel like fireworks. You walk out into the sunshine and suddenly the world claps for you, proud of all you survived. It's not like that. Healing is slower. Sometimes it feels like nothing at all, just you making tea in the morning and realizing it doesn't hurt to exist today. But it does happen. And after everything I went through, after everything my parents did, it started happening to me. A year passed after I left. A full 12 months of new air, new spaces, new names spoken with real warmth. Maya and I stayed close. Closer, actually. We shared a room by then, not just as friends, but as something more. She asked if we were a thing one night while we were sitting in the back of a poetry slam in Brooklyn, sipping warm soda and holding hands. I don't know, I told her. Do things feel like home? She smiled and said, then yeah, I think we're a thing. We didn't rush anything, just slow touches, quiet mornings, and knowing that we'd both seen the worst in people and still chose to love anyway. Talia supported us completely. She made room in her tiny fridge for the weird oat milk Maya liked and asked me questions no one ever had, like, what's your favorite scent? And did you want to learn to drive? She never made a show of being an ally. She just listened, and that was enough. I started volunteering at Rainbow Bridge too, helping other kids like me who were just starting to crawl out of the closets their parents locked them in. It felt good, Frankie. Real. Like maybe everything I'd gone through had carved out space for someone else to survive. My dad came around more. At first it was just the occasional letter, then phone calls, eventually coffee meetups. He tried. Clumsily, sure. He'd mess up pronouns, get quiet at certain parts of my story, but I could tell he was trying to know me, not remember Ryan. I forgave him. Not all at once, but piece by piece. One afternoon, he came by with a box of my old things. Not the Ryan box. This one had stuff I didn't even know they kept. Baby shoes, finger paint scribbles with Elena in shaky kindergarten letters, a tiny bracelet from the hospital nursery with my birth ID, my real birth ID, with my name on it. They gave you this, he said. We just couldn't handle it. He didn't ask for praise, didn't beg for redemption. He just handed it to me and said, it's always been yours. But my mom, she stayed silent. Or rather, she didn't speak in any way that mattered. She sent holiday cards addressed to Ryan. She mailed me newspaper clippings about grief and gender confusion with notes that said things like, still praying for you. I stopped opening them. Let them pile up in a shoebox under the bed like old poison I refused to drink anymore. And then came my 17th birthday. I wasn't expecting anything from her. Wasn't even hoping, if I'm being honest. But that morning, there was an envelope on the doorstep. No return address. Just Elena. I opened it. Inside was a birthday card. Simple. No glitter, no stickers. Just a pale blue background with a small cake on the front. Inside, in her handwriting, were 3 words. "Happy birthday, Elena." That was it. No speech, no begging, no Bible verses or guilt trips, just my name. And for some reason that cracked something open. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know how, but I didn't throw it out either. A few weeks later, she asked if we could meet. I agreed. We picked a diner, same one I'd seen my dad in a year earlier. I got there early, sat in the booth with sweaty palms and a knot in my throat the size of a fist. She arrived 10 minutes late, hair straighter than I remembered, eyes older, like she hadn't slept well in years. She sat down slowly, like she was afraid I might bolt. I didn't know what to say. She started. "So you called me Ryan?" I asked. She winced. It was habit. It was grief. It was denial. I don't know. "You erased me," I said, not cruelly, just truthfully. "You replaced me with someone who never existed." She looked down. "I know." That surprised me. I thought... She stopped. "I thought if I could make you into him, maybe I wouldn't lose everything. But I lost you anyway." We were both quiet. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. A baby in a yellow onesie, grinning at something just out of frame. Chubby cheeks. Big eyes. She turned it over and handed it to me. On the back, in careful cursive, it said, "Elena, 6 months old." I stared at it. "You wrote my name," I whispered. Her voice cracked. "Because I finally see you." I didn't hug her, but I didn't walk away either. That spring, I celebrated a full year of independence. We had a picnic in Prospect Park. Me, Maya, Talia, my dad, a few friends from Rainbow Bridge. Nothing fancy, just food and laughter and light that hit my shoulders in a way that didn't make me flinch anymore. Talia made a cake with buttercream flowers and piped, "To Elena, for becoming," in curly letters across the top. After we sang and ate and took too many photos, I stepped away for a moment, stood in the grass, breathed, and thought about her, the little girl I used to be, the one who clutched dolls in secret, who whispered her name into the pillow at night, who stared at the mirror and wondered where she went. She was gone for a long time, but I brought her back. Not through magic, not through rescue, through fire, through the fight, through stubborn, raw, relentless truth. Frankie, I wasn't born into myself. I fought my way back to who I always was. If you made it this far, thanks for riding with me. If you love real, messy, emotional stories like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. There's always another confession waiting in the backseat.